Once upon a time, beside a vast and shimmering lake, there lived a little duck named Feather. His feathers were as white as freshly fallen snow, gleaming under the warm sunlight. From the moment he hatched from his egg, Feather was filled with an insatiable curiosity about the world around him. He loved watching the fish gliding beneath the lake's surface, listening to the gentle rustling of the reeds in the wind, and most of all, gazing up at the sky, marveling at the birds soaring freely above. More than anything, Feather dreamed of flying, not just the short, fluttering flights that ducks usually made, but true flight, where he could spread his wings and glide through the clouds like an eagle or a hawk. However, every time he shared his dream with the other ducks, they would chuckle and shake their heads. "Feather, you're a duck," they would say. "Ducks swim. We might flap our wings to get across the lake or escape danger, but real flying? That's for other birds, not us." But Feather refused to accept this. Deep in his heart, he believed that if he worked hard enough, if he practiced every day, one day he would truly fly. So, every morning, just as the first light of dawn painted the sky with hues of pink and gold, Feather would leave the safety of the water and head to the grassy banks of the lake. There, he would stretch his wings, take a deep breath, and jump. At first, he could barely lift himself off the ground. His wings flapped wildly, but he would only hover for a brief moment before landing back on his webbed feet. It was exhausting, but he refused to give up. He watched the other birds carefully, studying how they moved their wings, how they caught the wind, how they adjusted their balance mid-flight. Day after day, he practiced. Slowly but surely, he improved. His jumps became higher, his glides became longer, and his wings grew stronger. One day, a powerful storm swept through the lake. The winds howled, lightning flashed across the darkened sky, and the rain poured down in sheets. The other ducks huddled together in the reeds, waiting for the storm to pass. But Feather, instead of seeking shelter, felt a surge of excitement. "If I can fly in this wind," he thought, "then I can fly anywhere." Bracing himself against the howling gusts, he flapped his wings and leaped into the air. The wind caught him, lifting him higher than ever before. For a fleeting moment, he felt weightless, like he was truly flying. But then, a bolt of lightning split the sky, followed by a deafening crack of thunder. Startled, Feather lost his balance, his wings faltered, and he tumbled down into the churning waters of the lake. Soaked and shivering, he dragged himself back to the shore, his heart heavy with disappointment. He had come so close, only to fail again. But as he looked up, the storm clouds were beginning to clear, and a beautiful rainbow arched across the sky. Seeing it filled him with a renewed sense of determination. He had gotten higher than ever before, and that meant he was improving. Failure wasn't the end, it was just another step towards success. From that day on, Feather trained even harder. He didn't just practice flying, he studied the wind, learning how to use it to his advantage. He observed the eagles that nested on the cliffs beyond the lake, noting how they soared effortlessly, letting the air currents carry them instead of simply flapping their wings. His dedication was noticed by the other ducks. At first, they whispered behind his back, calling him foolish for chasing an impossible dream. But as the days turned to weeks, some of the younger ducks began watching him with admiration. A few even joined him, hesitantly flapping their own wings, wondering if perhaps, just perhaps, Feather was onto something. However, not everyone was pleased. The leader of the duck flock, an old and wise duck named Elder Quill, decided that it was time to put an end to Feather's nonsense. He called a meeting by the water's edge, where all the ducks gathered to hear what he had to say. "Feather," Elder Quill said, his voice firm but not unkind, "ducks are meant for the water. It is our way of life. This obsession of yours, this dream of flying like an eagle, will only bring you disappointment. You should focus on being the best duck you can be, rather than chasing something that was never meant for you." The other ducks nodded in agreement. Feather looked around at his fellow ducks, at the lake that had been his home since birth. He understood their concerns, but he also knew something they didn't. He had already tasted the sky, and it had changed him forever. He couldn't ignore his dream, no matter how much they disapproved. "I respect you, Elder Quill," Feather said, his voice steady, "but if I never try, I'll never know what I'm capable of. I have to see this through." Elder Quill sighed but said nothing more. The other ducks murmured among themselves, uncertain whether Feather was brave or simply foolish. The next morning, before the sun had fully risen, Feather made a decision. If he truly wanted to master flight, he had to go beyond the lake. He needed to find the highest places, the strongest winds, the best teachers. And so, he left. He flew past the lake, past the meadows, past the forests. He met new birds along the way, swift swallows who taught him the secrets of speed, wise owls who showed him how to glide with minimal effort, and mighty eagles who explained the importance of patience and endurance. Each new lesson made him stronger, more skilled. He learned how to read the skies, how to find the best air currents, how to conserve his energy on long journeys. After many months, Feather finally returned to the lake. The ducks were astonished when they saw him descend gracefully from the sky, his wings spread wide, his movements effortless. He was no longer the awkward little duck struggling to take off, he was a true flyer. "You did it," one of the young ducks whispered in awe. Elder Quill watched him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Perhaps," he said at last, "we were wrong about what ducks are capable of." But Feather was not done. His dream had never been just about proving himself. It had always been about exploring, discovering, and pushing the limits of what was possible. So, after spending some time with his old friends, he spread his wings once more and took to the skies, heading toward new adventures. Years passed, and Feather's story became legend among the ducks of the lake. Generations of young ducklings grew up hearing about the duck who dared to defy expectations, who refused to be bound by what others said was possible. Many of them began practicing their own flights, no longer fearing the sky but embracing it. And so, the lake changed, not because Feather demanded it, but because he had shown them a new way to dream. Some say that if you look up at the sky on a bright, clear morning, you can still see a white-feathered duck soaring high above the clouds, searching for the next great adventure, never afraid to reach beyond what others believed possible. And with every wing beat, he carried a simple but powerful truth, that dreams are meant to be chased, no matter how impossible they seem. Do you still like today's story? If you like, please remember to subscribe to this channel and click the like icon. You can receive notifications and hear the latest stories as soon as possible. Good night, my baby.